Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Stankavich and I'm a wildlife technician at the Ohio Division of Wildlife and also a member of the Ohio Bat Working Group. In this short video, I'm going to be talking about some of the different ways that scientists study bats. But before we jump into how we study bats, it's important to understand why we study them. First, we want to be able to monitor if bat populations are stable or if they're declining. Bats are important for maintaining healthy ecosystems, so we want to make sure that their populations are healthy too. Second, we want to be able to find out what places endangered and threatened species are using so that we can focus on protecting those areas. And third, for all bat species, we want to be able to protect their summer roosts and their winter hibernacula. Okay, so moving into our methods here, one method that we use to capture bats is called misnetting. You can see a photo of a misnet on the left here. It looks a little bit like a giant volleyball net that's stretched between two poles. The net's made of really thin nylon and it's difficult for bats to detect, so when it's placed somewhere like a travel corridor, like you see on the right here, the bats fly into it and they get caught. The benefit of misnetting is that you have a bat in your hand and you can collect a lot of different data like the species, age, sex, and weight of the bat. I'm going to play a short video that shows how scientists remove a bat from a misnet. I do want to remind everyone that you should never touch any bat that you find, and you especially shouldn't touch bats without gloves as is being shown in this video. So the first thing that you generally want to do is remove the feet and the tail area from the net. That's the easiest place to start, and after that you can start to slip the net over the head and the wings of the bat. Once you get one wing free, it's a good idea to tuck it in and hold on to that wing, otherwise the bat might start to flap that wing and get it re-caught in the net, which doesn't help. Once the bat is completely free, the scientist will then either place it in something like a paper bag or a cloth bag and take it back to the processing station, and that's where they'll collect all the data that I mentioned in the previous slide. If you happen to capture a healthy female bat in a misnet that is from a state or federally endangered species, then you have to track it. So using a non-toxic, non-permanent glue, scientists affix a transmitter to the back of the bat. You can see that picture on the left here, and then they use an antenna, as is pictured on the right, to track the bat back to its roost. The transmitter stays attached for about 7 to 10 days before falling off. This process of tracking allows the scientists to find where the female bats are raising their young, and these trees or buildings can then be protected during the summer. The next step that you could do is to do an emergence count, either on that tree that you found by tracking the bat or anywhere else that you know a bat is roosting, like a bat house, a bat condo, or even if you have bats in your barn. So this is really easy. Basically, you just go to the site a little bit before dusk and you count how many bats are leaving that area. If you do this several times over the season, you can start to get an idea of how that colony might be changing throughout the summer. So if, for example, you only count 10 bats at the beginning of the summer, but then you count 20 at the end of the summer, you can assume that there were 10 bats born in that colony over the course of the summer. Another common method of studying bats is acoustic surveys. Bats navigate using echolocation, and acoustic devices can record these echolocation calls. The microphones can be mounted either in one place, as you can see on the left here, and then left in place for several nights, or they can actually be mounted on top of a car to allow you to do mobile bat surveys. After the acoustic data is recorded, you can upload it to a computer and run it through different software programs that can actually identify what species of bat made the call. They do this based on the frequency and the shape of the different pulses. So in this slide, you can see two different graphs. On the y-axis is frequency in kilohertz. So the graph on the left is a call from a hoary bat. These bats generally have pulses that have a minimum frequency of around 18 kilohertz. The call on the right is a little brown bat, and you can see the minimum frequency there is 40 kilohertz. So just looking really quickly at these two calls, you would know that they are two different bats. The process of species identification from acoustic data is really complex, but it's generally much easier to do these types of surveys compared to misnetting. So there's a little bit of a trade-off with what kind of data you want to collect. And finally, the most common method of surveying bats in the winter is to do a hibernacula survey. A hibernaculum is basically just a place where an animal is hibernating in the winter. So for bats, this can be caves, mines, or even above ground rock shelters. So scientists will go into these areas and count the number of bats that are hibernating there and identify what species are present. Here are some photos that were taken during hibernacular surveys in Ohio. The first is a cluster of big brown bats that are hibernating together. The second photo is a tricolored bat. This bat stays relatively inactive during the winter, and as a result, it forms droplets of condensation on its fur. And they're generally pretty easy to identify from this condensation. The last photo is either a little brown bat or a northern long-eared bat. Unfortunately, it's not always easy enough to get close enough to the bat in order to identify it, so we're not quite sure what this one is. There are several opportunities to get involved with bat research through the Division of Wildlife. If you'd like more information about these projects or about bats in general, please feel free to reach out to the Ohio Bat Working Group either on our Facebook page or you can check out our website for resources.